All right, we've got our second segment, Sip. Let's talk about Dakorien Moore and Kenyon Sadiq, Oregon's two leading receivers. Gary Bryant has 2 more catches than Kenyon Sadiq this year, but those are the 3 guys who have at least 20 receptions this year for the Ducks. Dakorien leads the team with 443 yards. Kenyon Sadiq, second with 311. Gary Bryant and Malik Benson are tied with 277. Dakorien's got 3 touchdowns. Sadiq has 5, and Gary Bryant has 4. Have these guys been used to their fullest potential in the offense this year? No, I don't believe that's the case. That's not to say they've been wildly underutilized, because when you look at the numbers, and as I always say, stats are a starting point, not an end point when you're trying to fully understand a situation. The context required for the numbers Dakorien Moore has put up, because he's not probably going to have a 1,000-yard season in the regular season. Maybe if Oregon plays in a couple playoff games and he starts to pop off, he could get there. But the other thing you have to remember is, how often have these guys played 4 quarters of football? Not very often, right? The Rutgers game, yeah, didn't play 4 quarters there. The Wisconsin game, yeah, nobody was going to have big passing yards in those conditions. Oklahoma State got out of hand quickly. Oregon State didn't get out of hand as quickly as it should have, but again, the fourth quarter was pretty much wrapped up. Montana State, same sort of deal. So, do I think that there is enough of an emphasis from Will Stein from a play calling standpoint of involving these guys in the game? No, I do not. However, I think the numbers not being as high as you might see with some star players on other teams is a function of that. And also that Oregon has a lot of different weapons. We've seen Jeremiah McClellan come on in the last couple of games. We know what Malik Benson has been as a big play guy. Oregon has also run the ball really well. And so they don't need to throw it maybe quite as much as they did at times last year when the run game was just okay. And that's something that I did want to see from this offense in 2025 compared to 2024, was their ability to create explosive running plays was not good last year. And it was, we learned at the end of the season, indicative of underlying issues in the run game. Whether that was schematic, personnel-based, probably a combination of the two. We saw against Ohio State in the Rose Bowl, they could not run the football. They couldn't run it at all. They ran it well against Penn State in the Big Ten championship game, but they couldn't run it at all. I just hit my hand on the table. Don't worry, I didn't cut myself. I do that way more often. I talk with my hands a lot. Anyway, they weren't good enough in the Rose Bowl in that spot. And you think back to the early games in the year where Jordan James didn't have last year an explosive run, which is 15 or more, and explosive plays in the air are 20 yards or more. He didn't have a run of 15 yards or more until Michigan State. I believe that was game number 5. That's crazy, especially when you think about what Oregon has done in the running game this year. Jordan Davison, 2 games ago against Rutgers, had 3 carries for 100 yards. De'Ara Hill had a 27-yard touchdown. He had a 27-yard run, I believe it was, on Saturday against Wisconsin. And then he had a 30-ish yard touchdown against Rutgers. Like, the explosives have been all over the place. And so I think that for Oregon, the running game has drained those numbers a little bit. But what we saw in the Indiana game, I think, is reflective of what I'm trying to get across here. Kenyon Sadiq didn't have a touch until the third quarter. First play, they got him the ball on a play-action boot, just something simple, and he picked up a first down. Now, there wasn't an attempt to get him the ball early against Wisconsin. He dropped the screen pass, which has, I know that fans don't like screen passes, or some fans are just, every screen pass is horrible. Ignore the ones that work and focus on the ones that don't work to create a narrative there. That's what I see happening. And certainly, there are moments when I look and go, you got an NFL caliber guy at quarterback on 3rd and 7. You don't need to throw it behind the sticks as often as you do. It's not quite as bad as Marcus Arroyo, Justin Herbert in 2019, but there are some shades of it in there. I'll just say there are certainly some shades. So I think that for Oregon, each game, what I'd like to see, like, think about the Indiana game. Dakorien Moore did not have a huge day in that one, but let me pull up the numbers real quick just so I can operate with accuracy here. One moment. Malik Benson was the leading receiver with 44 yards. Of course, Dante Moore didn't have a great day throwing the ball, but Benson had 1 catch for 44 yards. Oregon's next leading receiver was Dakorien Moore, 4 catches for 39. Contrast that with Fernando Mendoza, who also, make no mistake about it, was far from brilliant in the game. He was great situationally. He threw for 215 yards, 1 touchdown, under 7 yards per attempt, and a pick 6. But Elijah Surratt had 8 catches for 121 yards and a score. I think the lack of focus on getting these two guys, who are Oregon's best receiving targets, the ball early and often throughout the game, I think is where I would like to see Will Stein make some adjustments. Because when the passing game is struggling, I'm just wondering, okay, maybe this comes down to Dante Moore. Maybe this is an overly critical segment of Will Stein. I'm sure some of you won't attribute that motive to me. But maybe this is an overly critical or ignorant segment talking about Will Stein because, well, he is trying to get Dakorien Moore the ball and Dante Moore just isn't getting to him. Maybe that's the case. But regardless, those two guys have to be able to get together and get these guys the ball because they're creating a lot of explosive plays over and over and over again. But it's not as often as it could be. And so when I talk all offseason about the depth that Oregon has in the receiver room and their ability to do a lot of different things in the passing game, I still want star players to be featured, to be go-to guys, to have big performances, because that usually leads to the most offensive production. The confidence that Oregon fans should have in the receiving core behind your top 2 or 3 guys should be really high, but there are sequences in the game where it feels like, man, was there any attempt to get Sadiq the ball? Did Dante Moore audible out of it? We don't know. Was there an attempt to get Dakorien Moore the ball? Because it seems like when you set this guy up, Dakorien Moore, for one-on-one spots, boy, he seems to win a lot. And you think back to the Penn State game, who were Oregon's 2 leading receivers? Dakorien Moore and Kenyon Sadiq. That is not a coincidence. And though the results weren't always there against a defense that had a lot of talent and extra week to prepare on the road, they were able to do enough situationally because of those guys. So I think more than anything, I want to see, the numbers can go up, but I think they'll happen if these two things take place. I would like to see Oregon's offense make a greater effort to get them involved early in the game and at least catch a defense's attention. And then if they start rolling a safety to Dakorien Moore or, throwing 2 guys at Kenyon Sadiq or anything like that, then you go to the other options. But those are your best playmakers, and they need to be involved more early in games to get the defense's attention and to create positive offensive sequences. And then I want to see them be reliable guys and develop that chemistry with Dante Moore in critical moments, like Elijah Surratt was for Indiana against the Ducks. Not a big day, but over half of Fernando Mendoza's passing yards against the Ducks went to Elijah Surratt. And Dakorien Moore is a different type of receiver, but he is an elite sort of guy. And maybe there are other little things that I don't see that coaches see on film that he still has to work on. But all in all, I would very much like to see Dakorien Moore and Kenyon Sadiq be bigger parts of the offense. I know plenty of you have harsher criticisms of Will Stein. That, I think, is the biggest one that I have seen so far. In addition to, the game planning, the pressures against Indiana, all that sort of stuff. That is all totally warranted. But as I thought about this more, went back and watched some more film, I just kind of felt, man, it feels like Dakorien just gets hidden from time to time. Maybe he's being double covered a bunch. But I think there can be more of an effort beyond the screen game or gadget plays to Dakorien Moore to get him involved. Because I watch other teams do it all the time. Oregon knew Elijah Surratt was going to get the ball a lot. He still was able to make some plays. I think that's a next step sort of moment for the Oregon offense. And it would be great to figure that out against an Iowa defense that we know is really good.